Less than half an hour, curfews will go into effect in the city.
Takes a look at how it'll work and if any exceptions will be allowed.
This announcement comes after police say a group of men assaulted 2 officers outside a migrant shelter in Times Square. And just days later, police say a 15-year-old migrant shot a woman inside JD Sports in Times Square, then allegedly fired at officers who were chasing him.
More changes are coming to migrant shelters across the city. Starting tomorrow, an additional 20 shelters will implement a nightly curfew.
For the safety of migrants, the city explains in a statement it's, quote, prioritizing the health and safety of asylum seekers and surrounding New Yorkers, and that it, quote, will allow for more efficient capacity management for migrants in the city's care. Mayor Adams spoke about the curfew at an unrelated event Sunday.
Anything that can keep us safe, that's the goal. Public safety.
The mayor also emphasizing on the need for structure, organization, and federal help with the asylum seeker crisis.
The real issue is the national government should solve this problem. This is not a city problem. This is a national government problem.
The curfew initially went into effect at 4 shelters in mid-January, but is now expanded to 20 more, mostly in Manhattan. The expanded curfew impacts more than 3,600 more migrants across city shelters.
And by the way, New York Governor Kathy Hochul says she wants to give New York City an additional $2.4 billion to help manage the massive influx of migrants that they've seen in that city. $1.9 billion would be included in the governor's 2025 budget proposal, with an additional $500 million coming from the state's rainy day fund. New York City believes the cost of providing food, housing, medical care, you name it, for all of these migrants could reach $10 to $12 billion by next year. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is calling for nearly $2.5 billion in migrant aid in her state's latest budget proposal. That's roughly 1% of the entire state budget for New York. What does that tell you, and what should it tell us who are watching at home about how much needs to be spent in actual border states, the Texases, the Arizonas, the Californias of the world, to try to bring the migrant crisis under control?
It's extremely disappointing that she's doing this, because all that does is offers more free aid to people that cross our borders illegally. And the more free aid that you offer, the more people are going to come. So she's asking for a couple $1 billion right now. Then next year she asks for another couple $1 billion, because the problem doesn't end at the border.
But
it's
do you
just
think
a
that actually helps
cycle.
Republicans? Do you think her saying, hey, even New York needs $2.5 billion, is that helpful in Republicans' fight to say, if New York needs $2.5 billion, President Biden, White House, what do you think we need?
No, it doesn't in the effect that we're just throwing money at a problem, that money doesn't solve it. It's policy. If the Republicans jumped on this and said, hey, Kathy, give us the policy and then you won't have to worry about this $2.1 billion, that's what we need. So we don't have to throw money at it. We have to have policy. And that's what nobody, including Kathy Hochul, is willing to give us. If she gave us policy, she wouldn't have to worry about this issue anymore.
We asked the mayor.
They told us today they feel like they're being treated like animals. I wanted to know what your response was.
Here in New York City, with tensions high over the growing migrant crisis.
Ghost guns, we know, are bad. Now you hear ghost criminals, and that can also incite fear. But the mayor and the NYPD have pointed out that these criminals ultimately make up a small portion of the asylum seekers here. This level of crime, there seems to be this kind of network of crime, but it is migrant-based, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
And when you see our police being brutally attacked in the middle of the day, and then you've got immigrants who are being let go with no bail, we don't have IDs on them, we don't know where they're going, and they're flipping the camera and basically flipping the country off on their way out with this entitlement mentality, this has been created. Yeah. We could easily stop it within the day tomorrow if we were just to enforce our laws. But they're not, the Biden administration is specifically not doing it. It's not doing it on purpose. And every single American is seeing these images, and it's frightening.
What you've got here that Commissioner Caban called ghost gangs simply means we don't have any records of these folks. They're new here. There's no database with their names in it. We don't know where they live. And it's a little bit compounded by the fact that Latin American names often have multiple elements to them that can be switched around. So that's why they're ghost gangs. And like ghost guns, which have no registration, ghost cars, which have fake license plates, That's the challenge for police.
Especially like when you have this ringleader that they're currently looking for. This isn't just, hey, steal a couple of phones or grab a couple of purses while you're on the back of a scooter. They're taking these phones, they're able to download apps, they're able to infiltrate people's banking accounts and drain money that way, and then set up a payment system where if you drive the scooter, you get $100 a day. If you steal the phone, you get between $3 and $5. It's pretty elaborate for somebody who just kind of crossed the border.
Yeah, they crossed the border with relationships with gangs in Venezuela. They are a sophisticated group, stealing electric scooters, using them to knock people down and steal their phones, either selling the phones or selling the data in the phones. This is a sophisticated operation.
So if you're a part of the NYPD task force that's tasked with bringing down criminals like this, and we talk about, ghost criminals and ghost guns and not being able to identify or figure out where these people are coming from with no past record.
We have another incident where migrants fired a shot in a retail store right in Times Square just 2 days ago.
A 15-year-old wanted for opening fire on police officers in a crowded Times Square and shooting a tourist in the leg with a .45 caliber handgun, now in police custody, according to law enforcement.
Considering where these shootings took place, it's an actual miracle that we're not having a very different conversation right now.
Police say the teenage migrant recently arrived in New York from Venezuela in September. One of 3 teens who, according to police, entered a sporting goods store Thursday evening, stopped by a security guard for allegedly stealing clothes.
Our suspect takes out a .45 caliber handgun, a very large handgun, shoots at her into a crowd, striking a 37-year-old female tourist from Brazil.
Some of the men picked up by federal immigration officers on a Phoenix-bound bus are not the men suspected in the assault on a pair of NYPD officers. So it's still believed some of the migrant men who were charged and released last week are headed out west to the California-Mexico border. CBP confirms to Fox it issued warrants for 3 of the men, Gomez Isquiel, Juarez, and Servita Rocha. The only suspect who is being held on bail in New York in this case, Yohenry Brito, is set to be arraigned on a grand jury indictment next month when the charges for his alleged role in the assault will be unsealed.
And back to that indictment of Yohenry Brito, we do not yet know specific charge or charges because that indictment remains under seal. However, he is set for an arraignment March 25th.
The attorney for Yohenry Brito not saying much today. Brito is right now the only suspect to be arrested and held on bail in connection to the assault on 2 police officers.
Brito had a brief court appearance yesterday for 2 prior misdemeanor cases. His attorney saying after his client pleaded not guilty. This case highlighting the sanctuary city laws, which limit New York City agencies in their involvement with ICE. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said this week it's a matter for city council to take up. And just yesterday, he said he supports deportations in these instances.
For the safety of migrants, the city explains in a statement it's, quote, prioritizing the health and safety of asylum seekers and surrounding New Yorkers, and that it, quote, will allow for more efficient capacity management for migrants in the city's care. Mayor Adams spoke about the curfew at an unrelated event Sunday.
Anything that can keep us safe, that's the goal. Public safety.
The mayor also emphasizing on the need for structure, organization, and federal help with the asylum seeker crisis.
The real issue is the national government should solve this problem. This is not a city problem. This is a national government problem.
The curfew initially went into effect at 4 shelters in mid-January, but is now expanded to 20 more, mostly in Manhattan.
It is my strong belief that if a person commit a serious crime, felony, violent crime, the federal government should do this job and deport that individual if they're found guilty.
Now, New York Republican lawmakers have penned this letter to New York Governor Kathy Hochul calling for Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg to be removed, saying his handling of this assault must be the, quote, final straw, and adding, quote, the public safety of New Yorkers is clearly at risk. So the DA's office tells us the worst offenders and the brutal attack have yet to be arrested.
8 migrants arrested, 6 charged, 5 freed without bail. 1 had been released from Brownsville due to capacity issues. 2 were removed from the United States, then re-entered, and 2 entered through the northern border. Because of this incident, how is it that this incident changed the conversation in New York about illegal immigration?
Well, it hit home for sure. I mean, it just became more of a reality. And thank you for having me on, and good evening to you.
Yeah.
It became the reality of the actual violence that's taking place in the city of New York that is being caused by this migrant crisis that we have here.